Hello? Agreed. So let's talk about vacuum here. So yeah, sorry, my internet goes out for about a second sometimes, and usually it's not enough for anything to matter. It happens about 3 times a day. But every once in a while, Arena just decides that they hate it. No, it didn't count, Mez. They so the cards that make vacuum good are bookworms, right? Like not bookworm outright, but card advantage is what makes the vacuum good. Like, and the manifest deck is not hurting for card advantage. Like we are good at generating cards. The reason the manifest decks often fail is because they draw those cards and don't do anything with them. So the manifest deck is a lot more interested in things like not necessarily break down the door, but insidious fungus or drag to the roots. Like you need the card draw and you need to answer the specific outliers because the games take so long that your opponent will get to those outliers. Your opponent will get to their, well, there goes vacuums. Your opponent will get to their fear of, like, their Valgaboss. Like, your manifest deck needs to be able to sacrifice 3 permanents to kill a Valgaboss, which is fine because you're looping things. Like, you are building an efficient engine. But this is the deck that once goes vacuum. Am I not live anymore? Can you guys hear me? Twitch says I'm not live. All right, so I can be heard. Weird, I'm not going to worry about it. Yeah, so like, that's why cards like Unable to Scream, Live or Die, like Live or Die is a lot better in this deck. These optional cards are so much better in engines. And that's what Ghost Vacuum is. Ghost Vacuum is an optional card. Like, early game, it makes so like your opponent's veteran survivors a little less impactful. Your opponent doesn't get to Ride of the Moth. Your opponent doesn't get to Delirium. It has minor value against all of those decks, but then at 6 mana, it puts a bunch of bodies into play. Like 6 mana, make 4 flyers is good. I like the Ghost Vacuum. I've taken it very high. I mean, I first picked it. Like, I don't know why other streamers don't like it, but like other streamers are also really down on Horrid Vigor. Other streamers don't like Horde Vigor or survival triggers. I don't know why. But you need to decide early. You need cheap interaction and you need expensive flexible interaction. I would have loved, I think 1 drag to the roots in your 40 cards is important here. I need more water and then we'll play again. I'm also going to restart Arena. Am I really? That's so weird to me. So like, the way I do content, I think content creators are the one group that probably shouldn't use data. And that's not because like, data is a good tool that you should use if you are good at using data. I don't use data, but that's not because I don't value it. It's because, like, it's my job to put data out there. Like, data creates bias. Oh my god, the game didn't. What the hell? Okay, I guess this game has been going this whole time and we're both still at 20. Somehow. I don't know that this life total can't be accurate, right? Or maybe they just really, oh shit, they thought I pass with mana up and they couldn't attack. I did have a wall of blockers. They didn't notice I DC. All right, this is gonna be a fun game. My opponent got 3 free turns. So we're gonna have to do some work here. Back when Hearthstone was a game that people played and people got really good at playing around sleepers, I would pretend to DC, then just watch the game, and people would be like, oh shit, he's gone, I'd better kill him before he comes back, and then they'd flood the board, and then I would play a board wipe. Ooh, I can hold this back as a blocker. Well, sort of. Or I can just manifest dread. Savior Small doesn't do anything. No, because if I manifest dread this turn and don't have a plan for Horde Vigor, then I am out that 2 mana. But if I end step live or die, ooh, that's scary. But they have 4 survival creatures right now. So if I end step live or die, pick up my Snatcher, then I get to attack with Fear of Exposure, Snatcher, and Horde Vigor and Manifest Dread. I hope they're coming in. My opponent got 3 free turns. 3 turns where I could not do anything. No, 2 turns. They only got 2 turns. But it looks like they were mana screwed and couldn't attack through the Fear of Exposure. So it's fine. I'm gonna double block. Try and pull a spell out of him. No, I'm just gonna take the 6. They manifested Dread with the Defiant Survivor, and it would just happen to be Fear of Exposure. No, wait. It was Reluctant Role Model. And that kills Fear of Exposure. They are the full survival Boogaloo. All right. We'll manifest Dread first, because it does influence this turn a little. I don't think I manifest Dread a second time. I can try and kill that with this. So I should try and get in there before they have 2 mana. Let's see, this trades with Survivor and Fear. This trades with Savior and Fear. No attacks. We just have to wait this one out. Like, it's not great. We're not in a great situation, but they have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 strong survival triggers. Yes! And I do that by blocking their Fear with my Fear. Yeah! Block Fear on Fear, and then if they fungus, I get to Horde Vigor. But if they do a pre-combat, I don't get to Horde Vigor. Yeah, we are. This is scary, though. Like, all they've done this game is play creatures. That's not a bad thing to be doing. Ooh, with that, I'm gonna make 4 Brood Spinner tokens. Instant Enchantment Sorcery. They're playing this pretty carefully. Like, if they swing out, my Ghost Vacuum solves the Savior of this small problem. My Fear blocks Fear, my Snatcher blocks Shrewd Storyteller, my 2/2s trade with their 2/2s, my 2/3 blocks the Role Model. Like, this is, we are witnessing the problem with survival right now. Like, all they need, if they have, like, an Enduring Vitality, the green thing that lets them tap for mana, that's a problem. But I'm going to crack the Brood Spinner and start flying. Yes, yes it would. The ability to tap their creatures on demand, would, without them dying, would insta-kill us. And step, I'll crack my Brood Spinner, sure. Like, they can fungus here if they want. I love that it counts itself. I think if I had to guess, I'd say Jaspera Sentinel was in this format and it was too good. I think I'm leaving back one insect. Because I don't want to manifest Dread yet. Yes. I think they did a good job on it. Like, the survival decks require either rares, but like, I love Defiant Survivor. I play that card in this deck, right? Like, Reluctant Role Model, great card. It's you only have to trigger it once, and then the rest of the triggers happen. That's ice and all that cake. I can't make it to your wedding, but I'm sure I'm gonna be at your wake. You would talk in circles that day. Hey, Arsaw, how's it going? So I'm trying to bait this fungus out because I want to keep my ghost vacuum alive, and it looks like they have figured that out. Well played, sir. How you doing today, Arstall? No, that sounds great though. I want to do that. I'm having a nice time. We DC'd, so my internet blipped and then it ejected us, and we've been back and changed our deck around, and then found out that we hadn't actually DC'd, and that their opponent got 3 free turns. But we're doing great otherwise. I'm gonna manifest Dread first. That is what we wanted to manifest. All right, so we don't need to swing with all 5, because if we swing with 4, that puts them to 12, and then we've got 4 and 4. This is not a necessary point of damage. So, yeah, it's called but it's only 2 mana. It's called Brood Spinner. Fucking love Brood Spinner. It is true though. Brood Spinner plus Wood Reaver. Wood. I'll respond. But bam! You're not getting this back. It's my fungus now. I do like googly eyes. There, I have to agree with that, Straw. Pass, enter. What's this? What's this? Yes! I think Vile Mutilator is the key to making this deck work. Like, people try to make it work with the land cyclers, and they're just not impactful enough. Oh my god, the Cloudbring Time would be really good here. I love Brood Spinner because, like, yes, it does. It's got 3 googly eyes and 8 spider eyes. And so? What do I fear out of these? None? 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. All right, let's say they pump their whole team, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 blockers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 block. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. We're gonna just swing for 7. Exile. Why can't you destroy? I think I gotta turn off the role model. Should have sung for one more. No, it doesn't change the math. We're still swinging for 4, then 5. I might try and just manifest here. I should have tucked my Brood Spinner pre-combat. 3, 8, 9, 10, 11. So 6 lands left on my next 14. Math is for everybody, Artsal. That is... Math is for blockers is a myth that has cost people so many games. You need math. Oh my god, please don't clobber me, bro. Ah, they're clobbering me, bro. Oh, I see. It's the Glimmer Seeker. Aha! Ah, so they are on 1 swamp. We're just gonna give it indestructible here. They get a Glimmer and a Manifest out of this? See, but like... You have to be able to do that in Magic. You have to play off of instinct and vibe. That is called intuition. And you develop your intuition by carefully thinking through things. I obviously don't always carefully think through things. Not bad. And they put 7 toughness in front of the Megalodon. Easily, they can, and I just trade with Savior for the small. 5. Yeah, it is. The question is, do I brood this turn or next turn? I think I'd rather brood this turn than next turn. Because I only have 2 black sources. So I gave him a 2/2 for that. I'll keep a live or die, cool. Even if I can't live or die Brood Spinner in the same turn. But like if their answer to this is a flyer, we get to kill it. It's like the answer for this is to go for the kill. By size. Down the line. Block this hidden creature. If I kill the vigilant creature, it's a little safer. 2, 4, 5. They could conceivably kill me here. I want to kill the vigilance creature and the ones that make bodies. Like that. 1 body down, 2 bodies down, danger down, vigilance down, draw a card down. Like that. Yeah, I'm max greed mode and I wanted to Brood Spinner. But I was really worried they had... There's no, like, instant speed Inspire Charge. Good for them. If they mountain Pyroclasm me, that means that they didn't play the mountain last turn. Like, that means they banked this mountain. They earned that. Artifact and creature is what they got. Down to just 5. All right. So game 1, we mulliganed to 5-1. Game 2, we mulliganed to 5-1. Game 3, we DC'd and they got 2 free turns and we won. Pyroclasm's great. I think Pyroclasm is just really good in this format. But you have to build around Pyroclasm, right? I do think, like, I don't think survival works as 2 colors. I do think it's just good. Yes, we do. You have to build around having it, but like the survival deck is the right deck. That's what I'm saying. Like, survival is a good deck. It's not a green-white strictly deck. Like, survival with splashed pyroclasms is great. Red-white aggro splashing green survival triggers like the bat are great. Like, I'll be right back. I'm out of water. Yeah, this is what I wanted to hold up. Night survival is great. I do have I've had a lot of success in night survival. All right, again. So, all right, what if the One Ring had text at the bottom that said, at the beginning of your end step, if you don't control a ring bearer, target opponent gains control of it. Well, I can't keep a swamp hand. I could keep a swamp forest hand with a Megalodon. Let's go down a card. Yeah, I was talking about the. I think we're just putting back a land and digging for a blue source. Like Bookworm, double Bookworm is strong enough that I can do it. Yeah, Flavor Wind, and it makes it a lot more reasonable. You could even make it like 3 mana then. That's just strong enough to keep. I can play it and then Fear of Exposure to tap it, manifest, keep looking for that blue source. Hey puppy, you want some attention? To see a girl today and she had a bunch of dogs and he's been all over me since then. You smell the dogs? You smell the dogs? That's fine. I think it's still gonna be the survivor. We could have done it all. I think it's still gonna be the survivor here. And then we pass. So this can't get in here for free. Yeah, I think bottomless pool is just really good in this format. Land lets me do it all again. Wow, okay. We'll pick this up later. That's pretty good. Like a Manifest Dread would be best here. Or just not a land would be good. It can be. I need to find separate answers for those two. Yeah, that was terrifying as a curve. 2 mana Splay, 3 mana Manivore. I can get there on value, but not on size. I should have played the Forest. Yeah, but only if I can hit the blue source. What a curve. 2 drop, 3 drop. 4 mana, wipe your board. 5 drop. We're gonna just Growing Dread here. That's pretty lame. I needed both of those. Ah, that's the card I was looking for. It's okay though, we'll get there. That's bad though. That's really bad. Is that lethal? 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. It's legal next turn. Draws that keep me alive. So, Fruit Spinner. Neither of those are those draws. Sorry, I'm thinking about my draws. No 4 mana spells. No flash reach creatures. Like, I'm trying to decide if I want to play the second Bookworm. Loot twice. But I don't think I have any green answers or 4 mana answers at all. Alright, that's fine. 4 lands on top, it happens. Let's play again. Oh, that restricted office. Devastating. Just undid three turns of work. Alright, after this game, we're... Oh, sorry, Pop. My mattress off the bed. After this game, we are doing every deck explained ever for standard. We will be talking about every standard deck that is tiered currently, and then we'll draft some more. We might play a little standard. What a hand. Santa's pretty cool right now. Good draw. Did I wait until turn 4 to play it? I might. So turn 4, Bookworm and Manifest Dread. So Watchdog. I did not like Leyline, but otherwise, like, I don't like Leyline not because it's overpowered, just because the games were over on turn 2. And if they just jump it, that's fine. I've got Brute Spinner come down. I'm fine with that trade 1 for 1. So if I get to attack here, then I'll Bookworm Brute Spinner. And if I don't get to attack here, I'll Bookworm Manifest Dread. Okay. Bookworm Manifest Dread it is. I feel like I never manifest creatures. What's worse? Looking jealous or crazy? Jealous or crazy? I think I'm taking this 7. Yeah. Like, the person with the Leyline deck, if they were doing it to win, would just play until they... Like, they would mulligan until they couldn't win, and then the game would be over. I think I want to surveil after I manifest. Alright, combat. No attacks. Manifest. Cool. And then I reach creature. So now I have something to double block the Fear of Exposure and Brute Spinner to block the Cheerleader. Another Fear of Exposure seems good. Yeah, but the Leyline deck is cool and interesting in best of 3. So I like that they only ban it for best of 1. Yeah, that's fair. That's a lot of value. All right, we are gonna play one more because that was fast. And I pinged the server, so I have to give people a chance to show up. Oh, I should ping the Gathering server because I'm using their site. Survival's great. Ooh, Growing Dread Spectral Snatcher is good enough to keep it. Ah, number 1, Insidious Roots. Number 2, Azorius Artifacts. It depends on whether you, like, the other... Do you count all the artifact stacks as different ones? Use your best judgment? I think I want the Swamp more than the 2-2, but it depends on what they do here. No, I have Defiant Survivors, so hitting those now is so valuable. Hot. It's a good hit. Just have a 6-5. I mean, they can gremlin me right now and 9 me. I mean, like, going all in on a 3-mana 6-5 is a fine way to start the game, especially when I can hit for 6 twice, put them to 8, and then use Horde Vigor to hit for 5. They thought they had a good line this game. Maybe a little thicker for the rain. Maybe just a good book and a heart to break. Sure thing. Can you link it to me when you get a chance? I think I'm more afraid of the clown than the ghost at this stage. Thank you. We'll get in there first. How you been, Fina? Yeah, I feel like people just don't fully understand how that works. We'll Swamp Cycle. I think I'm gonna raise dead. I really need that second black source. Turn this off for the sake of racing. So there is an argument for holding up Horde Vigor here, but I don't want to be quite that all in. Ah, that's cool. Someone worked really hard on that. That's just a novel. That's a self-help book. Well, there are 5-mana kill spells, but I think you're mostly right. Ken Ashcorp, that name is so familiar. Yeah, Fina, I've started watching some of the like speedrun history videos. They're really fascinating. I like I watched like the one for Super Mario Brothers Wii. That much damage. So I Death Touch here, then they ping for 1. Yeah, Summoning Salts. That's what I've been watching, KP. Really enjoy it. It's good background stuff. I think I'm using Horde Vigor here. I mean, they just so it's Death Touch damage. Yeah. And I don't like not being able to gain life this game, but I think that's fine. Yeah, Summoning Salt. And it's not even it. It's the Screaming Nemesis is the source. No life gain this game. All right, I do like this song. It's like Real Big Fish about anime girls. All right. I've been trying to explain to a friend that, like, no, look, when I just tell you that Apothecary Diaries is just House as a teenage girl in the Dr. House as a teenage girl in the Ming Dynasty. That is a compliment. That should make you want to watch it. It makes me want to watch it. They can put 6 here and 2. Alright, this will work. Reveal a creature card, 6 here. Yeah, I like what my favorite thing about Apothecary Diaries is like everybody is kind and smart, right? Like it's not like, yes, there's fucked up shit happening in the Ming Dynasty, and yes, like maybe the Emperor isn't great. But like it's just life, right? It's not about how hard life is, it's about life. Yeah, agreed. I agree with them. Good game. Who needs to cast all these spells? No, it was just interesting. Like, it's not okay. So, like, there's this 9-year-old. She's a 14-year-old consort who was a consort when she was 9. Yes, that is horrible, reprehensible stuff. But the show isn't about how that's horrible, reprehensible stuff. There's just stories about her life, and they don't think that they have to convince you. Yeah, for real, they don't think that they have to convince you that it's horrible. They know you know it's horrible. And lately there's been this trend that's like, what do you mean there are people who don't think this is horrible? Like, it's so much better because of that. Love it. I think it's really good. All right, we're on to Every Deck Explained Ever. We are going to be opening up a few of them. So let me pull these up. Maybe I should open some packs. We'll just do collection. Episode 8? Dude, I'm trying to remember. So, we just had the... I just want to set a standard. Why is it so difficult? So in Apothecary Diaries, they just had the... Not you. It's so difficult to put the standards then together. Oh my god. Okay, we did it. We found all the standard sets. It's pretty cool. All right, I just want to have this open. We're gonna set this up. This will just take a sec. I get a little bigger for this one. Whoa, no, love it. Thank you. So if you haven't looked at standard in a while, you should. It's pretty cool right now. I kind of want to be able to swap this, the colors, but it's fine. All right, mono white. Sorry, I'm just checking the caretaker's talents. I think I'm going to be... I'll talk about these back to back. Golgari mid-range. I'm going to talk about this right after Gruul. Then things I want to do is Zorius Control, Mono White tokens, Jeskai, Convoke, Orzhov midrange. That order. So obvious. So I have 2 jobs at the Gathering. Thegathering.gg, that's the website that I write for. The first is all limited content. Every limited and draft article and every limited and draft tier list, I do all of it. I couldn't do it without Tyrant. But the other thing I do is because I can, I can play any constructed deck perfectly immediately. So the other thing I do, like it's just bragging. The other thing I do is I write all the deck descriptions for every deck in every format. But in order to do that, I do every deck explained ever. So because it helps me to find things and it helps me to have people tell me when I'm wrong. So that's what we're doing right now. It's a little segment I do about once a format. And I'm going to talk about every deck in Standard to help people see what the format is like. And when I say every deck in Standard, I mean our tier list. Thegathering.gg, we keep tier lists. They're data-driven as much as we can. Some stuff is hard, like it's going to be really tough to get Pioneer data for a long time because there's no Pioneer events. Fairly often, I'm going to guess more starting right now. So a tiered deck, what is a tiered deck? S tier, I'll talk about this at the beginning because I'm going to do it. I cut it as a segment for people because this is one of the things people refer back to. So right now, I'm just getting all of the lists up. Yes, Standard is a great way to get into Constructed, and it's in a good place right now. Love Simic Cookies. So happy to see Simic Cookies is here. Standard is in a great place. Although I'm a little sad at how quickly the Bloomborough cards were outclassed. Okay, what did I need to take out of here? So Leyline only got banned in best of 1. It is only banned in arena best of 1, which I think is a brilliant move. Like Leyline, Leyline of, that's why I did this. Watching a vapor trail. Leyline of Resonance, which apparently I've never drafted. All right, so this card got banned, but only in best of 1. And that's because it's not an overpowered card, but the Leyline of Resonance deck, you would mulligan until you had a Leyline or 2 in your opening hand, and you would do that until you were at 4 cards so that you could win the game on turn 2. And if you didn't have the Leyline of Resonance, you just scoop. So it says Standard, and you can get the refund like it was in Standard and Wild Cards, but it is only in best of 1, not best of 3. That's one of the reasons we're doing this, is because that's confusing. Azorius, Auras, Orzhov enchantments. Okay. Something get banned out of here. This is falling really far. Yeah, so there are currently 0 S tier decks. All right, I'll learn to define this and get into character. You gotta get the right energy for this segment because I try to get every list talked about in 3 minutes or less so that people can jump to the list that they need to know about. And for my purposes, because I need to squeeze it into about 80 words and they all have to be the exact same size. And we're going to do some lower key music. All right, so this is every deck ever explained for Standard. You might know that I write for thegathering.gg, and on thegathering.gg, we keep a tier list, which is every single deck tiered. So what is a tier? A tier is how good or generally played a deck is, specifically how much it's winning. So if a deck is half the meta, but it's not winning huge events, then it's not likely to be tiered. If a deck is winning every single event and being played by everybody, that's S tier. Boros Energy in Modern is S tier right now. But usually an S tier deck means that a ban is incoming or something that will otherwise shake up the meta, usually from Wizards of the Coast. A tier are the most played decks. B tier are decks that you'll run into quite often. C tier are decks that maybe require a little more skill or you'll see a little less often. Or maybe there's a reason people aren't playing it, maybe cost. And then D tier are things that you should know about. So the thing is, a D tier deck isn't a bad tier. If you think about this like a whole alphabet, these are the top 4 tiers. We don't do E tier, F tier, G tier. We only talk about decks that are seeing a certain amount of play. Every once in a while, you'll have one person do really well with one deck, and that will jump it to a tier. Domain is very good. We'll be talking about that later. Like, these are all very good decks. Domain is D tier, not because it's bad or because it's not played. It's just a lot harder to play than some of these other lists. If your deck isn't here, that doesn't mean it's not playable, and that doesn't mean that you shouldn't play it. Like, there are, in a particularly healthy format, like this is 7, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 powerful decks. That's a nice healthy format. I'd say Standard has 50 or 60 viable decks right now, and that's great. If a deck is more popular, it will have more finishes. So it will probably be higher tier. That doesn't mean it's necessarily better. Like if Azorius Tempo has 100 players, and it sometimes will have situations where Azorius Tempo will have 100 players, Gruul Prowess will have 10, and yet they'll be in the same tier because they have the same number of finishes relative to the number of people who are playing decks. We use a lot of modifiers, we collect a lot of data. The only time something will be wrong is when it's right on the edge. Like, I'd say really that Azorius Control, that's probably right on the cusp. It's A.5, but we put it down to B because these two both have a better lead. It's not going to be consistent. The tiers will change a lot based on the other decks in the format. The more decks in the format, the harder it is for something to tier. Having 16 tiered decks is absurd. Like, it's fantastic. This is best of 3 specifically. Great question, Arstal. This is a best of 3 tier list, not a best of 1 tier list. And we will talk about some outliers. There are a few decks that are drastically better in best of 1. Like, I think Gruul Prowess is drastically better in best of 1. I think Mono Red is drastically better in best of 1. The deck I play, Insidious Roots, that deck is drastically worse in best of 3. No worries, Arsel, you'll be able to jump back here anytime you need to. I'm trying to decide if I want a timer. I don't think I want a timer. I'm going to use... What's a good way to get a timer out of this? Yeah, so I'm going to re-record this for TikTok, I think. Like, that's why I was playing with TikTok earlier. Like right here. Trying to find the best way to put all you guys. Put all you guys here. Scooch me over a little bit. Yeah. You can tell me if I go too long. So let's see, really quick. 1, 2. Orzhov mid-range, Simic Cookies, Domain, maybe Rakdos Sacrifice. Those are the ones that are likely to go over 3 minutes. Standard is in a really good place right now because it's relatively straightforward and there's so many flavors of aggro. When there's only one aggro deck, that's when a format tends to be stale. Like when the decks are fast but interesting, they're a lot better. You might notice that a lot of decks from the last time I did this have fallen off. There's no Grixis Control. Thank you so much for the follow, Doug. There's no there's no lizards, right? There's no red-black lizards. There's no red-white mice. Which I still think are viable decks and great for getting started. We'll talk about some of the Bloomburrow tribes a little bit later. Right. That was a one deck aggro. Like, we have so many different kinds of aggro decks. Oh, if you are interested in looking at these on your own, I'll have the deck descriptions up soon. But this is thegathering.gg. This is the website I write for. Tyrant does nearly all of the work for it, so give him a thank you if you enjoy the work. And let's get started. Water. Okay, so up first we have Azorius Tempo. So Tempo means that you are dealing with your opponent's threats quickly and efficiently, while growing your own threats. In this case, there are 3 creatures that you'll see most often. You'll see Picklock Prankster. That's just because this is a spell and you care about those spells. And it puts cards in your graveyard. Like, it does everything, but you care a lot more about the Free the Fae side of this card. The important cards are Abhorrent Oculus and Hadi Jin. So Hadi Jin makes all of your spells cheaper. Abhorrent Oculus generates a threat every turn and is a massive body on its own. This deck wants to dump these creatures into the graveyard and then put them into play directly with Helping Hand or Recommission. You'll see a lot of variations in which specific reanimation spells people are running and how many, but you will always see at least 4, sometimes as many as 10. It depends on how much mill they want to do. So you're also going to see a lot of cantrips. Sleight of Hand, you look at the top 2, pick 1. Moment of Truth looks at the top 3, 1 to the graveyard, and 1 to the bottom of your library, but it puts those cards in your graveyard, and these cards are only 1 mana with Hadi Jin or Abhorrent Oculus out. Chart, of course, you actually do want to discard some amount of the time because you can use the Helping Hands to reanimate it. And then you have your interaction. So the interaction you have are like, oh, you can't. All right. So the interaction you have cards like Soul Partition. Yes, this doesn't answer your opponent's threat permanently, but it answers it long enough. Same with Into the Floodmaw. It answers your opponent's threat. It just bounces it for a little while, and then your opponent dies before they get to take advantage of the card advantage you just gave them. You gained a tempo advantage, but you're going to be down on cards because they get this card back. Hadi Jin and Abhorrent Oculus are both very likely to have 5 or more power. Abhorrent Oculus generates like up to 7. Hadi Jin will have 10 power or more if you are filling up your graveyard. They kill your opponent in the air through blockers. Playing this deck is all about how much of your opponent's cards can you ignore. You're ignoring as much as you can. Mana-wise, we have a lot of dual lands. Adarkar Waste, Seachrome Coast, Floodform Verge, and For Meticulous Archive, which is not something you'll always see because you do want your lands to come into play untapped. And as Tyrant just mentioned, the other card you'll see very often is Monastery Mentor. So, Monastery Mentor is also a 3-mana threat that wins the game after you cast a bunch of spells. The difference is that Abhorrent Oculus and Hadi Jin, they can both come down after you cast your spells and still be massive threats, whereas Monastery Mentor needs to come down before you have threats, but it wins the game a lot faster and it's a lot harder to deal with because if your opponent does have just an Infernal Grasp to destroy a target creature, you get a pile of monks that are all lethal threats on their own because this deck will cast 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 spells in the same turn. So I'm kind of surprised not to see Monastery Mentors in the sideboard of this deck, because in best of 3, you can answer Hadi Jin with removal, and you can answer Abhorrent Oculus with removal, but you can also answer Hadi Jin with some graveyard hate. And the decks that tend to run things like graveyard hate will have a little more trouble with dealing with Monastery Mentor. So, like, your interaction will change, the way you dig will change, your threats will change, and your reanimation will change, but you're going to need all of these pieces in the right measures, and then your sideboard is more specific answers because you're great at digging for those, and you will need to answer tokens with Temporary Lockdown. You will need to counter specific spells with Negate, and you'll just need to hit your opponent's attackers early sometimes. All right, that's Azorius Tempo. That is how the deck works. It's not always going to be $200. It's because Abhorrent Oculus is so expensive, but other than Abhorrent Oculus, this is a very cheap deck. Meticulous Archive is like $15. It's really cool. I'm glad to see it doing so well. Like, all right, this is the end of the Every Deck Explained. Now we're just talking about the deck. This card is good, But the least important, if you want to build this deck in paper, then lean towards Monastery Mentor over Abhorrent Oculus. Lean towards, you do want all 12, like, you do want all of these. You need your Seachrome Coasts, $3 each. You need your Adhikar Waste, $4 each. You don't need all the Meticulous Archives, $16 each. So like I tried to do 16 with my fingers, it went very poorly. There's only 8 expensive cards in this deck. They are Meticulous Archive and Abhorrent Oculus. So you can build this deck on a budget, add your Oculuses and your Archives over time, and it'll still do really well for you. That's why I like it so much. Like you can do 2 Oculus, 2 Mentors. Your deck will still function really well. You can do, you want all the Verges if you don't have the Archives, but like you'll be okay. This deck is great for substitutions. I love this deck. How much is the Abhorrent Oculus now? Like 20? Yeah, I think Lockdown's a couple bucks, but other than those 8 cards, it's very cheap. Yeah! Like Santa's great right now. Like $213 is a lot, but you can build this deck for, yeah, like that's $120 of your deck on Abhorrent Oculus. And like if you only have 1 or 2, you can still play it and pick them up over time. Standard's in a good place right now because you can build a budget deck that turns into a competitive deck, but you can also just build budget competitive decks. Why is this so expensive? Oh, that's why this is so expensive. All right, this is another example of an expensive deck. Not every build needs to run the Innkeeper's Talents. All right, Gruul Prowess. All right, Prowess. Gruul Prowess. You'll see flavors of this. There is Mono Red Prowess. There is Gruul Prowess. There is Red Blue Prowess. Prowess is whenever you cast a non-creature spell, get +1/+1. But we also use to refer to Prowess adjacent effects, like Questing Druid. Whenever you cast a spell that is white, blue, black, or red, you put a counter on it. So Prowess is all about putting down one of these cheap cards. We've got Heartfire Hero, Emberheart Challenger, Slickshot Show Off has honorary Prowess. Swift Spear, Monastery Swift Spear is the original Prowess creature, and it looks like it's a little bit messed up. A Manifold Mouse. This is the Manifold Mouse token, but this is Manifold Mouse's effect, and it has Offspring. Your job as the Gruul Prowess deck is to put down something like Heartfire Hero or Emberheart Challenger, and then protect it with cards like Snakeskin Veil, or the Royal one, which the name I can never remember. And then you have really efficient, cheap pump spells to make those creatures lethal as quickly as possible. If you play a turn 1 Heartfire Hero and turn 2 Monastery Swift Spear and Monstrous Rage, then that is 3 damage from the Monstrous Rage, 2 damage from the Swift Spear, and 2 damage from the Heartfire Hero. I'm sorry, 3 damage from the Heart, 2 damage from the Heartfire Hero. So 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 damage on turn 2. And if your opponent kills this, then yes, then they do, yes, the Monstrous Rage give it trample as well. If your opponent kills this, then they take the damage. So you can also, there is some depth because you have cards like Slickshot Show Off. Let's say you know your opponent has a removal spell on turn 2. You can plot the Show Off, untap, and then cast the Show Off when you are able to protect it. So you do have some choice and some ways to play around how your opponent is trying to interact with you. And if your opponent doesn't interact with you, you are faster. If your opponent is just trying to kill you, they cannot do it faster than you can. That's what this deck has in spades, is speed. So you are trying to make a few very efficient, difficult to kill creatures. So in terms of, yes, variations, some decks run fewer prowess creatures and a lot more protection spells. There are 8 available 1-mana protection spells. Some decks run more card draw. Stuff like Questing Druid, since your curve is so low, you will always be able to cast the spells that you exile off the top of your library and play until your next turn. This deck is using Innkeeper's Talent as protection spells. It gives a free, I can't remember what it's called, Valiant trigger for Heartfire Hero and Emberheart Challengers. It also gives a little bit of protection because they have Ward 1, and that adds up really fast when you're killing them so fast. There's a Rakdos, the mono red. There's a mono red version of Prowess. There's a blue red version of Prowess. There's a black red version of Prowess. That one really importantly gets this adventure creature from Wilds of Eldraine, Callous Sellsword. So burn together. You actually don't care about the creature portion of Rakdos Sellsword. You care about burn together because it flings. So when we were talking about Leyline of Resonance earlier, that was a turn 2 kill deck. Some versions of this deck run Leyline of Resonance. You begin with it in play, and then it copies your targeted spells, which means that if you turn 1 Manifold Mouse or turn 1 Heartfire Hero with a Leyline of Resonance in play, and then play a Monstrous Rage, you give it +5/+1. You can also fling it that same turn, and when you fling a Heartfire Hero, you deal damage equal to its power to target creature or player, and then deal damage equal to its power to target creature or player, and it's very hard to survive that. The sideboard usually is just slightly different burn spells, not necessarily better ones, but better for the meta. Some amount of hate, some amount of protection. I'm actually surprised to see so little protection in this sideboard. And then Urabrask's Forge is how this deck deals with control. We're going to be talking about Urabrask's Forge a lot today in different decks, but basically this card wins the game eventually and puts out an attacker every turn. Very powerful against the control decks. But this is the fast deck of the format. If you don't play Gruul Prowess, you still need to know about it, because if you don't understand how this deck plays, giving things double strike, forcing blood hackers through, it'll take you out before you can really do anything else. Yeah, this deck is also generally very, very cheap. It's a really heavy budget deck, but Innkeeper's Talent is $25. So without Innkeeper's Talent, it's a $75 deck, and you can kind of skimp on the lands a little bit to make it even cheaper. Most of the cards are pretty cheap. Emberheart Challenger is a couple bucks. Questing Druid is a couple bucks. But you might notice that rares. Everything else is a common or rares. It's a lot of commons and uncommons. It's a very cool deck. Yes. So without talent, you want a little bit more protection, but it's very good without talent. Up next, I love how much this deck changed. I need to take a few minutes and like a minute and just breathe deep, because talking for that long always runs me out of breath. This is a cool deck. Okay, so mono black midrange, or mono black aggro, and mono black control. These decks have been around for a while because removal is good. Being able to kill your opponent's creatures before they can explode for 20 damage is strong right now. However, we got a ton of new cards that made the mid-range clan actually work. So instead of being aggro or control, we get to be mid-range again. And the big one is Unholy Annex. So 5 mana, 6/6 fire, solid. 3 mana, you draw an extra card each turn, and your opponent loses 2 life each turn, is a way to grind out both their life and their cards and gain a little bit of life. That this deck, the mid-range version of this deck, was really missing. So Unholy Annex, and then the other new card we got was Unstoppable Slasher. These let you play a grindy game. Like, your opponent can only kill this so many times. It'll keep coming back, and they have to spend 2 spells to kill it in general. But it's also a lot of damage from the Slasher, and Slasher combos with our Ixalan Star Bloodletter of Axots. Because if your opponent loses half their life and then they double that, that is all of their life. It doesn't matter how much life they have. Half your life doubled is all your life. And it's a demon for Unholy Annex. So this is really a Bloodletter of Axots deck, and you need to be pretty much mono black to make the Bloodletter fit. The rest of the deck tends to be support and specific answers. So this is one of the few decks that gets to comfortably play all 4 copies of Duress, which is great against control, but not a dead card against the aggro decks, because most of the aggro decks are running so many pump spells. You also get just Premier Removal. Annoying with Affliction just exiles the creature, which you're happy to do. Go for the Throat kills just about everything people are playing in this format. Cut Down is a great 1 mana removal spell, because being able to kill something for 1 mana is abnormally valuable right now. You'll see varying numbers of Virtue of Persistence. Like, it's okay in here. Being able to kill a creature, gain some life, and then pay 7 mana to win the game eventually is great. Gix's Command, Liliana the Veil, strong cards, but you'll see them swap in or out all the time. This deck wins on an Archfiend of the Dross, very powerful threat. But this deck wins with Archfiend of the Dross, Bloodletter of Akazots, Unstoppable Slasher, and Unholy Annex. The rest of the interaction will change a lot. The actual go for the throats, cut downs, annoying with afflictions, Lilianas of the Veil, those will change. They're not totally flexible. You need some at the top end of the curve. You need some in the middle. But you need to adjust your removal to whatever your meta is. And so your removal and your duresses, they'll change a bit based on your rank in best of one, based on whether you're playing best of one or best of three, and based on what decks other people are playing at your local game store. So like as Tyrant just mentioned, Anointed with Affliction is really good because blue-white tempo plays those helping hands and those recommissions to pick up their 3-mana creatures, and Rural Prowess runs Heartfire heroes that you don't necessarily want to kill. You don't want these to die, you want them to be exiled. So even though you don't actually care about the corrupted portion of Anointed with Affliction, you're happy with the exile. Because the deck is monocolored, it gets more out of its lands. You get to play Demolition Fields and Fountain Ports because you have extra room for a few colorless lands. I don't know if I'd be on quite so many colorless lands here, but like they don't always need the Blood of Axos on turn 4. Sideboard, you'll see a lot of differences in. I like Harvester of Miseries because being able to kill all the tokens from Convoke, which we'll talk about soon, is really valuable. Karavek is a nice piece of value if the game goes really long. And then Cruel Claw's Heist is just more duresses, but they hit creatures as well. Love this playset of Ghost Vacuums. I didn't know it would be running all 4. All right, we're going to be comparing this one to Mono Black Midrange a lot. After this one, we'll run an ad and I'll get more water. Okay. Golgari midrange. So you'll see a lot of the same cards as Mono Black midrange, but they don't get to play Bloodletter of Akazots, and they don't get quite as much out of their demons. Like, just losing Bloodletter of Akazots means they also lose the Ritual Chamber, which means they also are a lot less interested in the Archfiend of the Dross, although you'll still see that one sometimes. Black in general just has such strong interaction in the form of cut down, go for the throat, duress, virtue of persistence. You'll see a one of a lot. That the different mid-range decks will usually be black. It's tough to compete with the efficiency of that removal. Green gives a few key cards, mainly Moxwood Dread Knight, because it's something much better to do on turn 2, which is also a very grindy play against control decks. And Glissa. Glissa generates a lot of value and kills. No creature can block Glissa. Like, it kills all the creatures before they deal damage. Frillback is a nice addition that you'll see a lot, just to have a little bit more interaction with artifacts and enchantments. Mono Black midrange can't deal with them at all. And because they don't have quite as many demons, they'll usually be running a few Sheoldreds. This particular build is running 2 Ritual Chambers and 3 Archfiend of the Dross to make those a little bit better. But you'll see lots of builds with no Archfiends and no Ritual Chambers for more Glissas for card advantage and more Planeswalkers. This is also a Bronco build. Not all the decks run Broncos, because Broncos requires you to run a lot of creatures to ride the Bronco. But if you are running the Bronco, it's so efficient. And this Unholy Annex Ritual Chamber, that's a mana value of 8. So you really want to be able to saddle the Broncos. Draining your opponent for 8 is fantastic. Taking 8 damage when you attack on turn 3 is a lot worse. Virtue Persistence also gets a little bit better here. Golgari midrange compared to Mono Black midrange gets more value out of its lands because you get to play all 4 Restless Cottages, which are real threats and real attackers, and Mortuaries, which are just nice as surveil lands. You do also have a slightly worse mana base just because so many of these come into play tap, but that's fine because you get to do so much more on turn 2, and this deck is running all 4 cutdowns to help make up for those tapped lands. You also get a lot better out of the sideboard. Most green blacklists I've seen run 1 Nissa because it's just a win the game card against some decks, and more Terra Sunders and more Frillbacks. Yeah, hey Olga, how you doing? We are talking about, today is Every Deck Explained Ever. So up next we have mono red, and I need more water, so I'll be right back. I'm gonna run an ad too. Mono black mid range, Lucky. Here's the link. Yeah, enchantments are really good right now. Being able to kill them is important. All right, be right back. Okay, I'm back. Oh, that's awesome, Lucky. Nice work. All right, ads over. Great. I'm trying to figure out what to call this segment. Like every deck, explaining every deck ever. Something like that. I want a good acronym. What's next? All right, mono red. So mono red changes a bit. This is the least synergy dependent aggro deck, which has it makes it a little bit less explosive, but a lot more efficient. So you still have Emberheart Challenger and Heartfire Hero. They're really efficient beaters. And you still have Monstrous Rage because that just deals the most damage for any 1-mana spell available. But you also have Hired Claw. This is just an efficient attacker. It's a 1-mana 1/2 that pings on attack and keeps doing it. Manifold Mouse is mostly just for the Challenger. Like, this is a mouse package in mono red. Challenger, Hero, and Manifold Mouse. This particular build is running all 4 Squee Dubious Monarch and a Godric Cloaked Reveler. Squee is a great beater. It keeps hitting. And then you need a little bit of burn. Since you're a little bit less explosive, you need spells that you can aim at your opponent's face to get the kill. In this meta, like in this standard format, it's mostly just Lightning Strike. We don't have a lot of actual burn that aims for the face. So you have Obliterating Bolt and Witchstalker Frenzy, but there's not as much that hits them directly. So there's so much variation available in mono red aggro. Some people do the full prowess thing. Some people do the ley line of resonance thing. We talked about that a little bit earlier. Some people go more with Godric's in the air. Some people run the Dragons build, which uses the battle from March of the Machine. But like, mono red is not like, yeah, it can be a little boring, but it's also pretty interesting to play, and it's a great place to start because the deck is cheap. It's cheap in wild cards. It's cheap in real money. I don't understand how this got to be $100. Like, I don't know what's expensive out of this deck enough to make it $100, but it's solid. This is running a Rockface Village to give things haste. Rockface Village is just a nice way to trigger your Valiants and give them haste. You don't get a lot out of the sideboard for mono red. That's why you'll pretty much always see 4 Urbask's Forge, some amount of more specific burn, and some way to draw cards. And that can change a little bit. Case of the Crimson Pulse is a good one, but there's also like connecting the dots I've seen. I've seen the Disguise Creature that flips up to draw 3. Mono red is varied, but they're always trying to kill you quickly. Right, 4 Braid is a good example. So this one is running 2 Pyroclasm, 2 Torch Tower, 2 Obliterating Bolt, 3 Lithomantic Barrage. But like, some people will just run 3 Braids. One thing that's interesting about this one is they're running 2 Witchstalker Frenzy main. Usually what I'll see in the sideboard of burn decks of mono red is ways to kill Sheoldred, like Scorching Shot or Witchstalker Frenzy, because Sheoldred is a card that this deck can't beat. Sheoldred the Apocalypse. But like, you need mono red in your meta as a balancing force. It's much better. It's tough to take game 1 against mono red. It's much easier to take game 2 and 3 against mono red. I'm kind of surprised not to see Screaming Nemesis just because of how good life gain is right now. But very cool in general. Yeah, being able to kill Oculus is important. Yeah. All right. Up next, we have Azorius Control. Yes, this is called Azorius Control. No, they're not really running much blue. So this is really mono white control, splashing alternate Wincon and Jace and negate. Sometimes you'll see a little bit more of the control element, but you can build this deck mono white without significant losses. Usually when I see it as Azorius, it's because they're running all 4 negates. Yeah. All right, so as mono white control has traditionally struggled with card advantage. Like, mono white is always great for sweepers like Sunfall. Sunfall is egregiously powerful. It wipes the board and creates a threat. And there are other available sweepers that aren't here, but there, yes, Temporary Lockdown, you'll see a lot. But we recently got mono white card advantage in Bloomburrow. So that is specifically Beza the Bounding Spring, which is always going to feel just okay until it saves you from a game you otherwise would have lost. And Caretaker's Talent. Caretaker's Talent is the real driving force behind this deck. Caretaker's Talent means that Carrot Cake draws 2 cards. It draws a card on its own. And it means that these Fountain Ports also can draw 2 cards off of just lands. Yes, great point, Ranger. There are other sweepers, but they're not Sunfall. Sunfall is the good sweeper. There's also some pretty good mono white removal available. So Lay Down Arms only works if you have enough planes, but killing anything for 1 mana and letting your opponent gain life, that's Swords to Plowshares. Swords to Plowshares is really good. Get Lost kills a creature and gives your opponent 2 maps. You don't care so much about the maps. And then Enduring Innocence, yes, was a really good pickup from Duskmourn. That's a great way to draw more cards, and you don't mind, like, it gains life, it draws cards, and you're fine letting it die. You'll see a different variations of planeswalkers. This one's running 2 Archangel Elspeth, but some people run the Wanderer or the Wandering Emperor. But the big ones are like the ones you always see are Beza, Caretaker's Talent, and Sunfall, and Lay Down Arms. The rest is it's like other control decks. The interaction will change a bit, the threats will change a bit, but you will have them all. Sideboard, you will see a few blue cards. Mostly you will see different and varied threats and different and varied answers. I love these just like 4 blue sources. Like Meticulous Archive is good enough in this deck just because it surveils and allows occasional sideboard blue cards. But I wouldn't even like, they still need to hit one of these 4 blue sources to play one of these cards. I think they probably have to make treasures a lot with Fountain Port to cast these spells. But Beza makes treasures too, right? It's, yeah, treasure token, they control more lands than you. You'll see also varying numbers of Season of the Burrow, just because making your Caretaker's Talent indestructible and recurring it is so important to how the deck plays. And taking out a card for your opponents, giving your opponent a card to take out a problematic card is valuable. I like Departing Gusts. I feel like I haven't seen Departing Gusts in this before. Like, you just don't care. Exiling a non-token creature permanently for 2 mana is great because when you give your opponent a fish when you're wiping the board. It even makes your Sunfall permanent bigger. All right, mono white tokens. So mono white control, mono white tokens. You'll see a lot of similarities, but it'll play a little bit differently. Like still Sunfall, Lay Down Arms, Get Lost, Caretaker's Talent, and Beza. There's like the only different cards in this deck from the other one is these 3 Soul Partitions and 2 Sanguine Evangelists. I don't think we can keep these as separate decks anymore. Like, mono white control has become mono white tokens. These used to be much more different. Like, until we got Enduring Innocence, these are very different decks. And now they're pretty much the same. Yeah. They were very different decks until this set came out, until we got Duskmourn. So they're running Imidane's Recruiter in the board instead of blue cards, and like they don't care so much about playing Imidane's Recruiter. They are playing 5 mana Knights, and then eventually they will Elegant Parlor to kill the other person all at once. But they're still generating huge value off Caretaker's Talent and Carrot Cakes. They're still using Lay Down Arms to get the kill, and they're still using Enduring Innocence and Beza as recovery and card advantage. I like this deck though. This is a super fun one if you want to think through your turns and win eventually. I recommend them both. They're both under $100 most of the time. Now here is a very different tokens deck. You might notice there's no Caretaker's Talent. Give me 1 sec. Okay, so we have seen Convoke decks be popular for a time, and in the rotation happened, we lost Volder and Epicure, which is a 1 mana creature that made an artifact when it came into play. This deck only runs 1 blue card, and it's an important one. It's Spyglass Siren. When Spyglass Siren is a 1 mana 1/1 when it comes into play, you make a map. Novice Inspector is a 1 mana 1/2 when it comes into play, you investigate. And these are really important because they allow Gleeful Demolition to be 1 mana, make 3 creatures on turn 2. So if you have the nuts with this deck, that's turn 1 Spyglass Siren and Novice Inspector. Turn 2 Gleeful Demolition, make 3 bodies, maybe play another 1-drop, and then play a Night Arrow Devios on turn 2 as a 4/4 that draws you 2 cards. If you don't have the Night Arrow Devios to cast with a huge board, you can maybe play a Warden of the Inner Sky and tap all of those extra bodies to put 2 counters on it, and then it'll fly the next turn. Or maybe you can just slam a Painter's Studio, the Face Gallery, and start attacking for a lot. The rest of the deck is just built to take advantage of how many creatures you get to have. They're not crazy good creatures, they're not crazy powerful, but you have a lot more of them. So Imidane's Recruiter, usually this is a 3 mana 2/2 pump the team attack. Sheltered by Ghosts is a new addition, I like it. Case of the Gateway Express is both an anthem and a kill spell. And where are you? Resolute Reinforcements. This is just 2 mana for 2 creatures. You're very happy to have it. The big weakness of Jeskai Convoke is its mana base. It's awful. We have 1 plains. Other than that, we are running 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 pain lands, 4, 8, 12 fast lands, and a Mirrex. Like, every land needs to add mana and add 2 of your colors and come into play untapped. Like, yeah. So this deck used to be Boros Convoke because it ran Volder and Epicure in this slot, but now it has to be Jeskai Convoke for its 1 key blue card. Tyrant brings up the point that Clockwork Percussionist is in a big get, and that's true. It is an artifact that you can target with lethal demolition that doesn't leave you down a card. It's not as good as Novice Inspector or Spyglass Siren, but it is an artifact that replaces itself. You're really happy to have it. Ooh, sideboard, you get Arabella. And Protect the Negotiators. You'll see Protect the Negotiators a lot as a counter spell that is just efficient at 2 mana, but really good at 3 mana. And then very specific answers to things. Torch the Tower, Sheltered by Ghosts. I love this Arabella. Arabella was probably a great addition because it means you, like, the more things you run that aren't part of this game plan. So this one runs 2 Sheltered by Ghosts. Everything else is a key part of the game plan. It pumps the team. It either pumps the bodies or puts out bodies. The more you dilute that game plan, the less consistent it's going to be, but it's the more your deck gets to do. So some people run fewer Percussionists. Some people don't run the Spyglass Siren, which means they don't have as many crazy turn 2s, but they are generally going to be more consistent because their mana doesn't have to be quite so awful. I love the idea of Arabella. Yes, Protect the Negotiators out of the counter bill. Thank you, Take. Protect the Negotiators out of the sideboard is a big, important card. Like, you need to be able to stop your opponent's temporary lockdowns and pyroclasms to stop this deck. Honestly, I thought this deck would die when we got Pyroclasm in Standard. I thought Pyroclasm in Duskmourn would be enough to kill the deck outright. But here it is. It's still kicking. Like, if you wipe the board, your opponent... If you wipe the board before your opponent puts the Knight Errant of Eos down, you can win that game handily. If they already played the Knight Errant, wiping the board might not help, because Knight Errant gets to go get a Resolute Reinforcements and an Imadade's Recruiter, and they'll bash you for 7 with haste. The deck is more resilient to sweepers than you would think. Yeah, cool deck. Glad it's still around. Ooh, this is my favorite normal deck. No. Yeah, this is a normal deck. All right. So, Orzhov midrange. I love that even though... So we have mono black midrange, mono white midrange, mono white tokens, mono white control, and Golgari midrange. And this deck looks different from all of them. Which is cool. That's cool. So, like, you still have to go for the throats and the cut downs as key efficient removal spells. And then you do see some of the more powerful cards like Beza and Caustic Bronco from the other mid-range decks. You don't have all 4 Bezas because it's harder to have double white reliably, but it's still a good card that helps you recover when you're behind. What you gain is bats. So you run all 4 Deep Cavern Bats. You get to take a card out of their hand, and you have a 1/1 lifelink. And then you gain Zoraline, which both picks up a bat, a Deep Cavern Bat, and gains a life every time the Deep Cavern Bat attacks. Akazots also is a bat god and generate bats when your opponents discard cards. The rest of the deck, you have a lot of things. You get to run more creatures that generate value each turn. So you have Preacher of the Schism and Caustic Bronco. Those are both great for generating value. And Virtue of Loyalty is a flash 2/2 that also just grows the team. This deck is has a lot more game against some of the most aggressive decks in the format because it's really great at gaining life. And it's got a comparable game against some of the more controlling decks of the format. Like Bronco, Preacher, Akazots, Zoraline all generate value every turn. Beza, Bat, and where are you? Virtue of Persistence, and then to a lesser extent Liliana of the Veil, generate value the turn they come down. Yeah, I love this deck. You get Restless Forge is a weaker man land, but it's still there. Like it still hits relatively hard. And you're running you get to run Fabled Passages because you actually have room for basics, which I like. Not all of these decks have enough room for basics. The sideboard, you're mostly going to see just more specific answers. Sweepers are very common because you don't main deck sweepers when you have so many good cheap creatures. But against like Boros Convoke or Jeskai Convoke, you bring in the temporary lockdowns and you take out your Broncos and often your bats, but you'll probably still leave a few in. Yeah, really cool deck. I'm happy to see Costello Investigators and Lorens as specific value generators and answers. Hey, Craggy, good to see it. See ya. I'm trying to answer questions between decks right now. But I'm glad you made it. I think this is the last C tier deck. Yes. So we are on to D tier. These are all of the cool ones. Can't believe how far Domain fell. This is cool. This is really cool. So, Band Control. This has a lot of what a lot of the pieces that Domain used to have. So this is a hard control deck. We'll talk about the cost of the end, Kagi. So we'll talk about these in a minute. What we have here are efficient 2-mana counter spells, blue-white, because it's not mono-white control. You get access to blue and white mana. You have Leyline Binding. This is a key card for Domain. It's usually going to cost you 2 mana in here, but there are a few good ways to reduce the cost, like Overlord of the Haunwoods, because it has all of the basic land types. And then Up the Beanstalk. So Up the Beanstalk replaces itself. It draws a card right away. It also draws a card when you cast any of the Overlords for their impending cost. If you pay 2 mana to draw 2 cards and discard a card, because this is impending, you also draw the card off of the Beanstalk. If you pay 4 mana for 2 2/1s, you also draw a card off of the Beanstalk. If you pay 3 mana for a land, you also draw a card off of the Beanstalk and generate all 5 basic land types for the Leyline Binding. I'm kind of surprised to see so few sweepers. Usually this is the deck that runs all 4 temporary lockdowns main, but it looks like they're running more single target removal in the form of Get Lost and Doppelgangs. So if you have an impending Overlord, then you get that effect, but then you doppelgang it to copy it. The token that it puts into play is not impending. It's just a creature in play. So you get to pay your 4 mana for an Overlord of the Mistmoors, and then pay 5 mana to make a clone of Overlord of the Mistmoors, which generates 2 more bodies, and a 6/6, which generates 2 bodies every attack. All of the Overlords, except arguably the green one, take over the game very fast when they start attacking. So compared to most control decks, this is a lot of pressure. All of these generate so much value and pressure. And yeah, your opponent is very likely to be able to kill them, but they have already generated the value. Like if you pay 7 mana for a 6/6 and make 2 1/1s and your opponent kills it, like you are left with 2 1/1s and a card from Up the Beanstalk. You just keep doing it. Sideboard, you have 3 colors. You have a lot of options. Temporary Lockdown, Rest in Peace, Negate, then a few more creatures. This deck digs a lot. Kind of surprised there's no main deck Elesh Norn because it's so cool with the Overlords. Just doubling those ETB triggers. But it's a tight list. There's not a lot of space for stuff. There's also a ton of lands. 4, 8, 12, 15, 18, 19, 20, 24, 25, 26, 27 lands. Control decks do tend to run a lot of them, even with Overlord. This deck churns through mana. And this Doppelgang really helps it use those 11 mana turns. It's also running all the Surveil lands it can fit, because those have multiple basic land types. I'm kind of surprised at 2 Fabled Passages with only 3 basics. All right, cost, Craggy. So Leyline Binding is a few dollars. Sunfall is a few dollars. Get Lost is $6. Doppelgang is a few dollars. Cavern of Souls is really important because it stops your opponent from using counter spells on your overlords. So Cavern of Souls means that this Overlord of the Flood Pits is uncounterable. Even if they have a kill spell, you still get to draw the cards. Same with Overlord of the Mistmoors. Yeah, but all the Overlords are pretty expensive. You need 12 of them. Cavern of Souls is still like $40, and you need 4 of them. All of these Surveil lands are like $12 or more. And then the Verges are a lot. The Verges are only a few bucks. Really cool deck. I feel like this is the natural evolution of Domain, because it plays like Domain, but without all of the risk. And we're going to do Domain next, because I think it's a reasonable follow-up. I like that, Arstal. I like that a lot. So Zur the Enchanter. Zur the Eternal Schemer. Is the enchantment creatures have Death Touch, Lifelink, Hexproof, but it also turns the overlords into attackers early, even while they're impending. And then that's really good. I didn't even thought of that, Arsal. I would play that. That's so cool. Yeah, this is my first time seeing the deck. I've never seen this deck before. I've never run into it. I've never seen, and nobody's ever sent me this list. Very cool. All right, up next, Domain. So Domain was a tier 1 deck before Duskmourn, and it fell off a little bit when we lost the tri-land. So they used to be lands of 3 basic land types. That was how Domain did all of its that's how Domain got Domain so fast. So Domain is number of basic land types matters. In this case, usually it's for Leyline Binding to make Leyline Binding a 1-mana exile anything, and often they would run Herd Migration to make all of the 5/3/3s. However, when we got Overlord of the Hotwoods back, now this is a land that is all 5 basic land types by itself. So 3 mana, you now have Domain automatically for this whole game, and a huge threat in 4 turns. They cut Herd Migration. I'm very sad about this. So instead of running all the basics and Herd Migration, they're just trying to get Overlord of the Hotwoods out and accepting that Leyline Binding isn't always going to be easy to cast. It's not always going to be only 1 man. But this is the big thing deck. This is the deck for just actually tapping 7 lands to cast Atraxa Grand Unifier, or 7 lands to cast Overlord of the Mistmoors. There are so many different builds of Domain because Domain gets to be 5 colors. The pieces that unite it are Overlord of the Hotwoods, Atraxa Grand Unifier, and some number of sweepers. Usually they'll run up to Beanstalk, but not always. They just need a way to generate card advantage, value. I've seen some builds with Caretaker's Talent. I've seen some builds that are just trying to kill a little bit harder, running all 4 Atraxas, all 4 Overlords. Yes, the deck needs to draw. No, the deck doesn't need to use Beanstalk to draw. Not anymore. Very good point, Lucky, though. Beanstalk is definitely the most common way I've seen. But, like, it matters what colors you're using a little bit. So when the deck was base green with Herd Migration, it had to be Beanstalk. Now that the deck is running so many cards like Overlord of the Mistmoors and Biza, they're heavier white, and they can use the Caretaker's Talent. Mill 3 to 4 Grab. What is that? I don't know what card that is. So this build is running 3 Temporary Lockdown, 3 Sunfalls. It's not uncommon to see all 4 of each, and you will always see 4 Leyline Binding. 4 Leyline Binding for Overlord of the Hotwoods. It runs a ton of lands. This deck cannot miss land drops. It never wants to miss land drops. You shouldn't play Domain if you're going to be missing land drops. The sideboard can be anything you want. In this case, they're not really using all the colors. They're mostly playing Atraxa. Often you'll see Imidane's Recruit or Herd Migration as a way to win the game. But Atraxa's wins the game. It wins the game when you cast it. You just need to make sure you have enough different card types in your deck. This one is using Jace as a way to mill their opponents out in the really heavy control matchups. Generally, the weakness of Domain is the heavy control decks, the decks that actually can just kill all the threats in the deck. So Jace is helpful as a way to just say, hey, I'm going to mill you 15 or 10 and hope that that gets you there. Yeah, there are a lot of mill X draw pick up permanent. I've seen cash grab is good. Say Its Name is solid. I would love to see some Say Its Name Altanak builds. Ooh, rest in peace. Too many rest in pieces. All I want to do is play Roots. All right, so Domain's fallen a bit. It used to be tier 1. Now it used to be A tier. Now it's D tier. That's still fine. Ooh, yes, Jason's really good at the mirror. I love cash grab. Okay, so happy that this deck is tiered. Simic Cookies, classic deck. What you want to do is you want to play cheap artifacts like Ginger Brute or Haywire Mite, or creatures that grow from cheap artifacts like Teething Wormlet. You know this is in here. This is new. Marvin Murderous Mimic. It's another good cheap artifact creature. And then things like Zoetic Glyph or Tough Cookie. Things that turn your artifacts into creatures at a discount. This is an efficient, fast deck. So you play your creatures that maybe are unblockable. Ginger Brute and Surge Engine are both unblockable in most situations. And Spyglass Siren is often unblockable because it flies. And then you grow them up. You put some permanents on them, or you generate value just from their existence, from the side of the body that they have. In this build, we see 3 Agatha's Soul Cauldron. Really happy about it. But you can take a card out of the graveyard to put a counter on your Wormlet or your Haywire Mite, and now it has this ability. Now your creature can become unblockable, become a 5/4, or draw 3 cards, or you can use Ginger Brute to make it unblockable, or you can use Tough Cookie to attack with the Soul Cauldron itself. I love this one Marvin Murderous Mimic here. It gains the activated abilities of Ginger Brute and Surge Engine, Haywire Mite, and Tough Cookie. This one is running more interaction than I usually see in the deck. So Kitesail Largeness gets to turn a creature into a treasure so that it can't block, and they'll get a mana. That's fine. And Monstrous Emergence is just a 2-mana bite that's a lot safer than normal bites. Yes, this is a very cheap deck. Soul Cauldron is the most expensive card in the deck, and Soul Cauldron was $40, and now it's like $15, which I'm happy about, because I love Agatha's Soul Cauldron. It's one of my favorite Magic cards. Soul Cauldron is really important for, like, even just making the Surge Engine ability colorless. But the card Simic Cookies has a little bit of interaction, a little bit of life gain, but it also blocks. Like, Zoetic Glyph gets to block your opponent's mono red creatures the turn it comes down, or just attack. So you're not quite as fast as like the Convoke deck or the Prowess decks, but you are better against all of the decks that are trying to block. You're better against the mid-range decks. I do think you suffer a lot from just being slower than the Prowess decks, but the matchup against the mid-range decks is so good. Mockingbird is a cool addition. It's a 1-mana clone with flying. Like, copying a Teething Wormlet and giving it flying is great. And copying a Larcenist or a Sentinel of the Nameless City just because you need them is great. Sentinel of the Nameless City and Zoetic Glyph are the most expensive cards in the deck. They're the only 3-mana spells in the deck. And that's because you're trying to play out your hand as quickly as you can. But they both are worth it. They generating a lot of maps is great. Generating a lot of Zoetic Glyphs is great. I love this deck because it is a very meta aggro deck. So this is a really cool set of different threats, but it's so good against this meta because, you know, this deck loves when your opponent gives you a where'd it go? Loves getting 2 maps. It gets so much out of the maps from a Get Lost, and it loves when your opponent is on a playset of Go for the Throats as their main forms of interaction. It loves when they are reliant on reanimating Newborn Oculus with a helping hand after you just resolved an Agatha's Soul Cauldron that they can't really interact with very well. This is a really meta specific aggro deck. It's really cool. Oh, who was that, Lucky? So there was a champion of this deck. There's an arena streamer. She is really good with it. And this is not an easy deck to play. This might actually be her list. All right, sideboard. You will almost always see more Larcenist because it's a really efficient answer. But some number of pick your poisons, some number of counter spells, some number of interaction. It struggles a lot with Gruul Arsenal. So the weakness of Simic Cookies is faster decks. And that would mostly only be Gruul Prowess, Mono Red. Where are you? Mono Red. I can't find Mono Red. Mono Red, Gruul Prowess, and Jeskai Tokens are the deck that this struggles with. I think Soul Cauldron's just down. Soul Cauldron's been down since Yogg became unplayable. I'm curious though. Let's check TCG player. All right. Yes, it's a cool deck though. I love cookies. They might be. It's 22 for an Agatha Soul Cauldron. So usually prices are taken from most recent sales. Soul Cauldron is not. Thank you. It is Ash Sizzle. I've run into. They knocked me out of day 2 of qualifier weekend with cookies specifically when I was playing that Hungry Hungry Hippos deck. I love this list though. I think this is so much fun. Yeah, prices were going to be wrong a bit, but like generally this is a really cheap deck with 3 Agatha Soul Cauldrons in it, and Soul Cauldron's not crazy. Like you can pick up Soul Cauldrons off your friends. Soul Cauldron was expensive because of Modern and Pioneer. Pioneer died, and Modern Yogg is bad now. All right, Rakdos Sacrifice. This is a cool one. So you might have watched me play this a lot whenever I can draft it. All right, Rakdos Sacrifice. So we're going to go by curve on this one. That's the easiest way to explain things. All right, up first, Spiteful Hexmage. This makes a curse that you want to sacrifice actively. Greedy Freebooter. When this dies, you make a treasure and scry 1. Clockwork Percussionist. Basically, when this dies, you draw a card. And then those are your 1 mana creatures. You put them down first. Then you have Hopeless Nightmare. Operates in a similar way, except your opponent discards and they lose 2 life. This lets you play pretty aggressively. And then at 1 mana for interaction, you have Torch the Tower. This bargains lets you sacrifice enchantments, but not creatures. And Final Vengeance. You sacrifice enchantments or creatures to exile a creature. Very efficient, but you have to already have something else in play. Out of Duskmourn, we gained Disturbing Mirth. You want to play that on turn 2 whenever you can. That'll draw you some cards. Plus, level this up to a 3/2, scry 2, draw a card, give you a treasure. Any of those things are very powerful. Nowhere to Run. This is just a removal spell that leaves something behind for you to sacrifice. At 3 mana, we have 2 cards. The first one is Braid's Arisen Nightmare. This is a sack outlet that generates some value every turn and makes your opponent lose some life. And Rottenmouth Viper. This is usually going to cost 3 mana in this deck. If you can get 3 permanents into play, you can spend 3 mana on the Rottenmouth Viper. If the Rottenmouth Viper attacks 3 times, you have won the game. That's really what this deck does well, is cheat things into play. Compared to other aggro decks, it just doesn't run out of resources. Like, you get to play a 3/2 on turn 1 and attack, you get to drain your opponent directly with some burn, but you don't run out of cards. You scry, you get to grind out your opponent's cards, you get to draw cards. Urbask's Forge just keeps pushing damage every turn, but it also, you don't actually sacrifice this until the end step. That's a body you can sacrifice every single turn. This deck is efficient with efficient answers and is great at getting them dead. I'm so happy that the Rottenmouth Viper builds made it. Like, we were seeing a lot of discard decks and Rottenmouth, like, that tried and failed to make Rottenmouth Viper work. But gaining the Percussionist was huge. This is a really important card for this deck. They also run Scavenger's Talent. Scavenger's Talent is mostly here as a way to keep permanence generating. So whenever a creature dies, you get a food, which you can also sack. And that food's valuable. That food will let you gain life, or you can actually mill your opponent out if you can get 2 Scavenger's Talents down. Just sack a whole bunch of stuff. Love this deck. It's really cool. Mana base isn't bad. 4 Verge, 4 Blackleaf Eclipse, 4 Sulphurous Springs, 7 basics. Beautiful. Sideboard, usually you're going to see some graveyard hate. This deck struggles against decks that can outgrind it. And a lot of the decks that outgrind it use cards, use recursive pieces. Things that, like Cash Grab. Leyline of the Void is a good card in this deck. There's also a little bit more interaction. Withering Torment, the deck suffers against enchantments. It has no real way to kill enchantments. Withering Torment doesn't really count. But I love the Pyroclasm Duress Leyline package in general. It's a solid deck. Happy to see it doing well. Final Vengeance was a big get. Yeah. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I would add in general. I'm glad Braids made the cut too. Like, you could see a Slayer in the sideboard, or the Skin Ripper, the 3-mana Skin Ripper, just because it pings so much. Like, you can really put a ton of damage into it. All right, last 3 decks. Final push. Dimmer Midrange. Just a good deck. You play a lot on your opponent's turn. So this is a lot like a control deck, but compared to a control deck, when I can't cast a Phantom Interference to counter a spell or a negate on my opponent's turn or 3 steps ahead, then I can flash in an Enduring Curiosity or Spike or a Fairy Mastermind, and these generate so much value. Like, Curiosity and Mastermind are really good. Really, most of the time what you want to do is turn 1 creature with cheap creature with flying, turn 2 cheap creature with flying, and then try to play the rest of the game on your opponent's turn with Tidebinders, Curiosities, Masterminds, and interaction. All of the interaction is instants. They're running Disfigures and Cutdowns, which I kind of like. Usually you'll only see the Cutdowns. But the Bats, so good in this format because, like, you knowing what your opponent's hand is lets you plan out all of your turns. And these cheap creatures, they just keep cards flowing. So these are all 1-for-1 removal spells. They deal with one thing for 1 card, and then you have all of these other things that generate a lot of value just from existing. This is a deck we've seen for a long time, but they used to run Gix. Gix is a 3-mana 3/3 card like Enduring Curiosity that you draw. You draw a card every time something hits, but it costs life to do so, and Gix itself is fragile. So Enduring Curiosity is a big upgrade. I love this Kaito and Slasher too. Like, I don't usually see Slasher in this deck. Like, it's fine, but it's better when your opponent is defensive down. You can kind of set it up. You can set up your Slasher. You can make it hard for your opponent to hit to stop it. And if you have your opponent's life total from 20 to 18 to 9, these cheap flies will be able to finish the game from there. Kaido, I also don't usually see. Kaido is usually just going to generate a lot of value and lock some stuff down. Great card. You're also very happy to ninjutsu it in when you have, like, a Mastermind or Spyglass Siren hitting. Sideboard, usually you're going to see an escalation of threats, more Akazots, Haunter of Misery, Tidebinders. Ren is cool. I haven't seen a Ren in the board. And then answers. Most sideboards in this standard format are going to be, what do I do against aggro? What do I do against control? And that means specific higher value threats and specific answers. Ooh, yeah. Kaido's just a good card. I love that he made the cut here, because this deck traditionally needed something like Enduring Curiosity to actually generate the value, or Gix. I'm kind of surprised they're not on a mix of Enduring Curiosity and Gix. I would have loved to see, like, 2 Gix for Curiosity, but Kaito probably makes up a lot of the difference there. All right, 2 left. Azorius Auras. This one I've been seeing more and more. I wouldn't be surprised to see it continue to rise. It's got just such good specific answers to the meta, but while having great tempo. Like, you just generate value over time. Yes, Sheltered by Ghosts, really good in this format. the lifelink on any of these is great. Same with Enduring Innocence. Like being able to put an ethereal armor, here you are, +1/+1 for each enchantment you control onto Enduring Innocence or any creature that's sheltered by ghosts. So good. But it's also running all 4 Shard Mage's Rescue and all 4 Fae Flights. And that's important for keeping your creatures alive. Like when you have sheltered by ghosts on a creature, you have to be able to protect it. And you only have to be able to protect it once or twice and your opponent's going to die. Yes, good point. There's a ton of variations for all of these decks, and figuring out how to put them together changes things a lot. There are more controlling builds of this deck that run fewer protection spells without the Fae Flights, and more ossifications, and even like the 3-mana spells. I've even seen versions running Leyline Bindings and then the Halflands. Not every version will play Optimistic Scavenger, but I think every version should. Scavenger, Tamer, Glimmer, Tracker, and Enduring Innocence. These cards, all of the creatures, generate so much more value than what they look like they were going to generate on their face, because everything you do, like with an Enduring Innocence and a Gremlin Tamer in play, everything draws a card and makes a 1/1. With Enduring Innocence, Entity Tracker, Gremlin Tamer, every single spell in the deck draws 2 cards. And it's really hard to break it up. The only thing that really beats this deck is sweepers. Like, that's it. If you can't wipe the board against this deck and wipe the board more than once, you will lose. However, they really can't beat Temporary Lockdown into Sunfall. So, like, that is the main reason I think we're not seeing more of it. But it's so good against the aggro decks and is great against the mid-range decks. Yeah, I like... Protecting from the single target removal spells makes a lot of sense. I think this build should always have all the negates in the board, because you should always try and stop it. How is Lockdown not great against it? It takes out everything but Entity Tracker and Enduring Innocence, but like more importantly, it takes off the ossifications. Like maybe the control deck doesn't want it as much, but the mid-range decks, breaking open ossifications is so good. Yeah, but so I'm talking about lockdown in the mid-range decks. Like, you want to lock down an attack. If you can stop the lockdown, like, if you break open lockdown, yes, you're going to win the game. But lockdown taking out Sheltered by Ghosts and ossification has the opposite effect. But, like, I mean, that might just not be enough. I've had luck running lockdown against it, but I also have not run into a Fae Flight version once. Sideboard... Usually, I'm surprised. I think it's wrong not to have all 4 negates. I think you need all 4 negates. But other than that, you'll usually see a little bit of cheap interaction and more removal. Kidnap and ossification are good ones. Cool deck. I'm glad that it's doing so well. Like, I'm glad it's tiered. I'm kind of surprised it's so expensive. I don't think that can be right. Like, it's all uncommons. Enduring Innocence is a couple bucks. Entity Tracker is a couple bucks. And all the lands are a couple bucks. Yeah, I really put this deck on like $40. So that's a fair point. The better player, that when you are having this argument, when you are arguing, okay, but Sheltered by Ghosts takes out Lockdown, but Lockdown takes out Sheltered by Ghosts, that means the winner is usually going to be the better player. Like, timing your cards, not playing your cards, is really difficult and important. Knowing that you have to kill the Entity Tracker instead of the Enduring Innocence in that situation is really important. Love the card. Love the deck. The deck has the same risk that Boggles does. So Boggles is an old deck. You'd play a 1-mana 1/1 hexproof creature, then lots of cards like Ethereal Armor that just powered up that one hexproof creature. But you always risk having a hand that's like 3 Ethereal Armors, 2 Sheltered by Ghosts, and not enough creatures. Or 4 Gremlin Tamers and 2 Entity Trackers and not enough enchantments. That is the risk of the deck. That's when it will lose. But like... And that risk is a little higher for this deck than for other decks, but the power you get from it is so much higher. Like, if you have a Gremlin Tamer, you only need 1, right? Like, Boggles would have the risk of 4 Slippery Boggles and then a Daybreak Coronet, and then they wouldn't be able to do anything. This deck needs only 1 creature. Like, if you have that 1 Gremlin Tamer, well, now your Shard Mage's Rescue and Fave Flights will keep it alive forever. So you're okay with that 1 creature and then all of the enchantments. Really cool deck. Like, enchantment creatures were also a big get. Enduring Innocence. Like, playing this deck and having 4 H12 non-enchantment cards feels bad. All right, last one. I reordered things a bit. So this is Azorius enchantments. This is Orzhov enchantments. So Orzhov enchantments, never seen this deck before. It's using Nurturing Pixie and then Tithing Blades and Bandit's Talents to generate value. So like this isn't running Oris, it is running specifically enchantments. And then it's using Braids, Pixie, Zoraline, and Scavengers to keep the value high. Like you get to interact a little bit better. Nowhere to Run, Shuttered by Ghosts, Bandit's Talent. These are really good ways to shut down what your opponent's doing. And then Tithing Blade is pretty good in this meta. When your opponent has 2 Shuttered by Ghosts on not a Gremlin Tamer, but an Entity Tracker, then Tithing Blade is a good way to free your stuff. If you are in a lockdown situation, like if your opponent is a control deck and they don't have an answer for the Tithing Blade, then you get to flip it, craft it with a creature, and just start draining them out on the backside of this. Love Zoraline in this deck. Like Zoraline can pick up Hopeless Nightmare and Tithing Blade and Bandit's Talent. And this deck gets to attack your opponent's hand, which is a good place to be in this format. Being able to attack your opponent's hand while gaining some life and interacting is solid. This deck feels untuned. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw this deck climb a lot before more sets come out. It needs a lot of like little things, little ways to improve your blocks, maybe a way to gain some life so that this Nurturing Pixie is a little bit better. This Nurturing Pixie is very powerful. I think they should have Rotten Mouth Vipers in the sideboard because this deck has so many extra enchantments lying around that you can sack and feed to the Rotten Mouth Viper. That is pretty much what happened, Severe. 2 decks got smushed together, but they made a pretty good deck. Like this is a deck of attrition. You are taking out your opponent's cards one at a time so that they just can't feed into the Braids. And then Braids is drawing a card every turn, draining them every turn. Yeah, it's sad that Braids can't sack battles. Just artifacts, creatures, lands, and planeswalkers. Yeah, sideboard, same as what we've seen. More specific answers, but no more specific threats, just specific answers. It doesn't really value its threats. It values its answers. So there's a 3-mana 3/3, the Angel. When it comes into play, you blink a permanent. That's pretty good. Yeah, but I love the Rottenmouth Viper version of this. That's what I usually see. And they eat all the Hopeless Nightmares and Tithing Blades and Bandit Talents. Yeah, there's a 3-mana Gear per something. Hang on, we'll pull it up. Guardian of Gearper. This card. This is a good card here. So Guardian of Gearper, you get to blink your Tithing Blade or your Bandit's Talent, whatever is more important. I like it. Whew. All right, that was every deck explained ever for Standard. If you wanted to go take another look at these lists, they are all available on thegathering.gg, and we update them weekly. So do check it out. Your Guardian doesn't blink enchantments? Oh, it's only artifacts and creatures. That would be why I don't think of it very often. But cool, I'm glad to see it. All right, so if there's any more decks you want to talk about, if you have questions or concerns or complaints, or you think I got one of these very wrong, this is my first time seeing all of these lists. Please let me know. But I will have deck descriptions up for these pretty soon. And you can keep checking back here for whatever you like. All right, so I was going to play some Standard after this. I think I just want to draft more. Not bad. We want to draft. What's up, Arstall? I need some higher energy music now. Ah, that is a really good question. Let's pull the list up. I mean, it does take out Unstoppable Slasher pretty cleanly, but I think what you really just want is cheap interaction. So, like, taking out all of these cards is strong, and taking out the Enduring Curiosity permanently is important. So, because it exiles permanently. So, like, you can deal 3 to your opponent's Enduring Curiosity and take it out all together. Like, they don't get it back. And that is how they do a lot of it. But yes, it does depend on which build of Gruul you are playing. So, yes. But there are grindier versions of Gruul aggro. So this is a Gruul prowess deck that cares a lot about having the right creatures at the right time. Sorry, I want to catch this Houndstone. But there are builds that'll run all 4 questing druids, like and all the versions of, hang on. Exile, play, turn. All right, so there are versions that will run Blazing Crescendo and or Empties and Ren's Resolves. All of these cards that exile 2 and you can play them this turn or until the end of next turn. So they have a lot more ability to draw cards. Wow, so I get that because Slick Shot is kind of an all-in card. Like, the other option would be to go harder on the protection for your Slick Shot. I like it though. All right, let's go back. So the new here, I'll play one standard match with my favorite deck. And then we'll go back to drafting. I keep adding an E to the end of Duskmourn. I don't know why. This is my favorite standard deck right now. I might build artifacts too. Am I keeping a 1-lander with 2 roots? It's a good meta. Standard's really cool right now. I think I'd play this and just hope that they aren't on. Yeah. I'm going to dig for roots. I said hope that they aren't on an aggro deck because Painland is really painful. We're pretty much getting rid. I need the swamp. We're pretty much getting rid of everything that's not roots, but I need a way to not die to my own mana. Yeah. This is bad. This is my roots build. Oh, thanks, IQ. That was a super fun deck. I don't know that we're actually going to be able to combo this game, but I just need to get the roots down. Roots down is how we win. Like, if roots is in play, everything else is fine. Junfood was a really cool deck. Junfood is really good in Pioneer right now. You don't get to play Corvold, though. You play Ikra. I used to do standard showcases, but people never seem to like watching them. If I had enough people who wanted to watch another standard showcase, I'll do it. That's where I just play a few matches with every standard deck. Yeah, so Brood Spinner I added to the deck to... Ooh. Guess we're racing. Like, we're just kind of hanging out. I'm not gonna let my opponent make me discard any more cards. I'm just gonna keep hitting them. Eventually they'll have to kill these, and then I can draw a card and make a plan. Or I'll get my Tivar back. This is a good draw. Yeah, Brute Spinner has been great in the deck because it... So most of the time, it's just fine. Most of the time, Brute Spinner is fine, but it's really important for games 2 and 3. Yeah, so Fina, in that time I played Bant Hidden Strings. Yeah, this is a bad matchup for them because of how well I do off the top. They did not notice that Brute Spinner had reach. All right, so we pretty much always assume they're bringing in a bunch of ley lines. So we bring in things accordingly. Trying to decide if I want bats. Usually I just try and focus less on my graveyard and less on the combo. And I try and take out the cards that are dependent on them. Like Rustine. We have to play more of a fair game for this. That's why I use the Brute Spinners. I'm bringing the pylons for the feeds. Then I can take out some of my dig. No, so Bant Strings was like, you would go turn 1 Delver of Secrets, turn 2 Hidden Strings, untap 2 lands, attack with the Delver of the Secrets, with the Cypher trigger on the stack, float 2 mana, and Advent of the Worm. And then I would just populate Advent of the Worm. 2 cuts. Usually I take out the bats, but I think I want to be able to deal with the, or the pylons. I want to be able to deal with the bats. I think it's a might. If I think they're bringing in artifacts, I'll do mites over glissas. I'll take out 1 Dread Knight because I'm expecting Leyline of the Void. That deck was so much fun. It had really awful mana though. That's the main issue. But I loved Advent of the Worm. I think this is a keep. We just want Restless Cottages here. Normally it's mulligan for roots, but I'm not really planning on being able to combo ever. Remember when a 4 mana 5/5 was something good? I think I just want all the glisses in this matchup. I should have put a Glissa on top just so I would guarantee another Glissa. Ooh, look at that. Mine does it, but better. Mine also draws a card every attack, but crushes yours when you attack. No, so Voice is great, but it's like... It's not about the death trigger on Voice anymore. It's about the... It's funny, like, because Voice used to be all about the death trigger, and now Voice is way more about the... Hey, man, I got First Strike and Death Touch. Sorry, Seawalker. I'm gonna... No, I'll draw this and then pile on. I want to get the most out of Surveil. I love... Oops. I love Pylon. What a card. What a beautiful magic card. I played this in Modern. I play Pylon. That's how good I think Pylon is. No, I don't... This deck tries to combo game 1, but then it mostly plays fair. It was. Oh, you know, I'd be pretty happy with Voice being printed tomorrow. I'll pitch a Tivar. Blizzard just wins the game to such a degree when they side out. What usually happens is they'll side out, like, go for the throats, but keep cut downs. I want this in the graveyard. So siding into better threats is really valuable. Honestly, it's pretty close. Like, it's kind of just where standard is. I mean, playing the roots this turn gives me lethal next turn. But I'm so likely to have to discard it if I don't play it. Which card is what? Oh, Voice of Resurgence. It's a cool card. It was totally busted when it got printed, and now it's just reasonable. It depends on the deck. Like, imagine that card with Caretaker's Talent. Like, if you draw a card because of Voice of Resurgence when it dies, and then copy it, and then you have two 10/10s. No, all the Shocklands were in Dragon's Maze Tyrant. They put all of them in. I'll draw. All right, let's see if we have lethal. We need to draw a kill spell for children. This will be fun. If you haven't seen this deck go off before, let's do it. Mill 3, pick up an Osteomancer Adept. Make a plant. Activate the Osteomancer Adept. Need to find my dogs. So each of these comes into play and triggers the roots, and as a cost forages and triggers the roots, and I net a mana each iteration. So I just need to keep milling. We'll Brood Spinner and milk more. 1, 2, 3. So the trick here is that I actually am not surveilling enough to do this infinitely. I do love Chromanticore. All right, looks like it's not gonna kill him. I needed the dog to have people here. Yeah, they scoop because Glistening Deluge doesn't kill them. All right, I need more water, and then we'll draft, okay? I'll pull the deck up. I have like an hour left, and then I got a dog. Yeah. All right, I'll be right back, and then we'll finish out this Manifest Dread draft. Be right back. All right, let's play. Yeah, Chromantic Core Soul Player. There's a guy, Usamax. I follow him on Twitter. He's like the Soul Player champion in Pioneer. That's all he runs. Smells nice outside. I like this temperature a lot. This is like my perfect weather. $60, a little less than, well, I actually don't know. 50? It's tough. It was 60 this morning, but in Colorado, the temperature goes down with the sun. 60. 58. I like sweater weather. I have like I'm not a good Captain America fan, but I am a Captain America knit sweater fan. Ooh. So powerful, but no blue source. And we have no plays without a blue source. From the draw, we can risk it. We don't have the interaction. Like, if we miss a turn, like, Oblivion's Bookworm blocks their 2/2 and draws us out of things. But if we miss the turn, we don't have the removal or above tempo threat to recover. We're going to throw it back. Same problem. We need that. We just need a green source and a blue source. We're only running a couple swamps. We'll throw it back. We can't keep a hand that's just break down the door, Horde Vigor, land. We're going to go to 4 because we have Bookworms we can hit. Okay. Green, blue, black. All right. We're just going to have to draw a Bookworm. It's okay, Ganj. I won an RC on double mulligan to 4 once. We'll be fine. Unless they put out threat. Then we'll die. Limited. Wilds of Eldraine Seal. Wilds of Eldraine is one of my really good sets, though. The more raw card advantage you have, the more you can mulligan. Like, yes, we're in some trouble. I didn't really want them to have a 2/2 and a 2/2, but sometimes you just have 4 unplayable hands in a row. Yes, exactly. Wilds of Eldraine, you can mulligan a lot more aggressively. Although, like, this is a 2-for-1. This is a 1-for-1, 1-for-1. I'm gonna let them shuffle in the fear of exposure. Because they're gonna just lock it, shuffle, and then I can beastie. But I am taking 4, 6. I'm taking 6 then 4. That's right, Gotch. That's exactly right. That's how that works. I was playing Black Red Rats, and once I mulligan to 5, I'm like, I'm not going to win without a Vampiric Rites, and then I mulligan to 4, and I hit Vampiric Rites and won. Well, that feels unfair, but okay.
Your tech is way. Looks like I gotta fight my way out of this one.
Damn. All right, again. So far we've had some pretty bad luck, but we won both games where we drew every land in the deck. 2 of our 4 mulligans to 5 or less. We lost a mulligan to 5 and a mulligan to 4. And we won 2 mulligans to 5. Well, we're not getting any One Piece chapters for a while because the author is working on season 2 of the live action. think we can keep this one in the back of the watchdog. It's so weak, though. Can I just have 2 colors one time? No. We're so far away from casting these spells. I'm gonna throw it back. I mean, it'll have to work. I have 2 colors. That'll have to be okay. Yeah, we'll put back the liver die. I would definitely played the wrong land. It's fine, though. I'd rather try and draw the card off the bookworm. If I manifest Jed now, they'll just torch it. Ah, it's still worth it. Rather torch that than the bookworm. Ooh, it's a good hit. If I draw land, I get to manifest again. If they block, that's fine. I don't think they will. We're just gonna cycle for a swamp. I'm sorry, I forgot that black was my main color. Blue is my splash. Splashing the bookworms. The internet was not a mistake. Letting capitalism control the internet was a mistake. I think I kill this because I need to draw a card. I'm just trying to I'm just checking my memory to make sure there's no 1 mana instance. I'm trying, Olga. I'm trying. A blue source or a 5th land gets me there. Blue source. I think I'd rather have the beastie down. Like I could manifest, but I think the beastie's really good right now. And being able to pick it up at instant speed is also really good. I want to live or die back my creature. And block the fear of immobility. They probably can see this coming, but that's fine. This is Mother Mother. One of my favorite bands ever. Respectable. Me too. They are one of my favorite bands ever. That's fine. End step. Picking my snatcher. Yeah, I want this green source more than the 6/5/7. I think I just double block. Although 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 crackback for lethal is tempting. I don't think they can kill me if I stop this too. Not this turn, at least. It means that Overlord isn't lethal and Fear isn't lethal. I was hoping to flip this up and cast the Fear of Exposure. Lame. Toasty Donut, thanks so much for the follow. I don't get to loot if I just fear of exposure, but I need the blockers because I can double block and block. I think I just play everything. All right, now I can double block here and double block here, take 2, go to 4. And if they have the jump scare, I die anyway. So I don't give anything that I just want in the graveyard inherently. I can dig for a flyer in case I draw a chandelier or the crypt. So I'm gonna mill. That means that I just have to not do that anymore because chandelier is how I tuck that. Damn, they always have the jump scare, don't they? Yeah, if we'd hit a green source or a blue source in our top 15 cards, we would have been fine. But that's how it goes. All right. Let's finish up that Kaldheim draft from before, the really disastrous one. And we'll call it a night there. I might be back later just for some Overwatch. But I have a few things I want to do. I think we'll probably go see Sandy because it's her birthday. Should I do a constructed push to Mythic? Yeah, I mean, like, I played around jump scare as much as I could. But, like, they were playing like they had jump scare. It's like nobody's doing Kaldheim right now. It's too bad. Okay. I'll do a standard push to Mythic. Maybe starting this weekend. What's the date? We'll have time next week. I'll do a standard push to Mythic. All I need is one. I need one person who wants to see it. I think we can keep this. Like, it's not a great hand, but on the play... Oh, I thought I was on the play. Whoops. Just having the snow-covered island is pretty valuable. Making this a 4-4 and a 3-5 or 4-6. Ox! Gotta love the Ox. So this is doesn't do a lot, but it gets to accrue the... Look, all of the time that I have for video games, 100% of it, well, that's not true anymore. All the time I have for Magic is here in front of you. Root Sconge. I'm playing Roots in Standard. But, like, not everyone wants to see everything. I get that. This makes me happy. This knave. I'm gonna play out Inga. I just named Giant for Reflections of Littlejohn. Like, this 4-4 lets me kind of survive this. Oh, this is so good. They're on vehicles and equipment. No, it's okay. I am lazy. Like, it's not that I'm lazy. It's just that I'm not offended, Peanut. Don't worry. But it's like people have to want it. If people want it, I will do it. But hitting Mythic and Constructed is not hard. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, everybody who I beat on the road to hitting Mythic. But it takes a lot longer. I think I only want one of these lands here. I think I'm naming Human with Reflections. It's hard in Timeless, Greaseball. If you're trying in Timeless, that's hard. I'm sorry if I offended you, Greaseball. It is difficult in Timeless. We're gonna take at least 5 more damage before this starts showing anything good. Next time I think I got a double block. High Mythic is. There's so many more Magic players there. All right. This is getting tapped. I'm gonna have to jump. I'm gonna have to go to 5. All right, but I want to play this too badly. This is true. I agree. Like, I'm loving this draft format, but like, I'll probably do a push to the top 250 and stop because I've lost too much this season to hit number 1, which is most of, like, either I want to be top 1200 or I want to be number 1. I do need to do a Mythic number 1 push for Constructed too. I might do that for Foundations. We'll see if it clicks for me. I should have done it for Duskmourn, but I got too excited about Kaldheim. I'm better at Duskmourn than Kaldheim. So top 250 get to play in the qualifier weekend without having to qualify. Oh God. That's a Nico.
My life is my own.
So they can tap it with a Goldmaw champion.
We fight well together.
Ow. The real problem here is that I only have sorcery speed interaction right now. Yes. We'll get in here with Inga first. I guess I should have fought here. Ooh.
Being a hero is harder than I thought.
We're going to struggle for Skemfar. Counter here and here. And then Kinseekers. Since Kinseekers is a human, I get a copy. No, so yes, if you're already qualified, it is better to deliberately fail the top 250. And yes, it is very silly. Only the second one got to scry. They're just foretelling. You didn't get lucky. You played well. Be proud of that. All right. 4, 8, 12, 13, 14. Puts them to 3. Just binding. I should have held up the disable stroke, actually. Just in case this is a hasty giant, we're just going to attack for 12. Yeah, I mean, part of that is luck, but you also have to be really good. Like, Magic is a game where you have to be lucky and good. You cannot do one or the other. Oh my god, I was so mad at my... I got so many ley lines. So many ley lines in sealed. But I like Duskmourn sealed in general. It is not Fina. I am pushing back. It is not better to be lucky than good. You need both. And you would rather be good than lucky. I feel like I'm proof of that, if anything. Like, Magic is the one thing I'm really superstitious about. Like, I have, ooh, a charge. Green, white, yeah? Alright, we're not gonna play this with snow. Wait, hang on. Hang on. Alright. They block here and take 10 and they die? How do you not die here? Let's find out. Ooh. Alright, we'll finish out this draft. If I lose, that'll be the end of it. But I have to take the pup. I've never opened a box that paid for the box, and I hate opening packs. One time I won a box of Ultimate Masters at an RC, and it was like $11 of stuff. That was the last thing I did. I mean, the realm does help a lot. I think we can keep this. It's a little sketchy. It's the part of the realm keeps the most explosive hands from killing us. We do need a fourth land very badly. Awesome. This is actually a hand I would have... Disable Stroke is a good card to be on the draw for. I don't want... They get a free card if I don't bounce this. No, but that's going to be really useful for stuff like Run Amok later. Spirit gets me... I guess the red-green is more useful in this deck. Ooh. Painful. Yeah, they should have attacked first because I might not have blocked. Now I got a 3-4 to block with, and a Depart the Realm emergency play. Then I get to start attacking. I think I want to be able to Disable Stroke that, but I don't know if blue. So I draw an island I get to. I'm gonna offer this trade here. Gonna stroke that angel. You heard me. You heard me. I'm gonna be disdainful about it too. Look at this little guy. Apparently they heard me too. This is a problem. Solution! I don't know. I feel like I do a lot of silly things. And I have a lot of fun doing it. Need a second island to play this stupid undersea invader. Whew. That's so annoying. I'm flooding out, but not with the one color I need. They might double block, but they probably just take it and attack me back. This deck's pretty bad. Avalanche Caller remains a very powerful magic card. Well, Kinseeker's first. Am I just dead if I swing out? Swing 8, leave 2 blockers back. They're double blocking a land. That's awesome. That would explain the double block. That does mean I die next turn if I don't have an answer for these flyers. And I answer 2 flyers. But apparently it's not enough. Alright, so I need an answer for one of these in the air. And that keeps me alive. I hope so. Very sad I didn't make it to Worlds. Not much of a point to attacking here. I mean, this is 8 though. You need a flyer here, and then 3 blockers. A flyer, block, block. I think I just need them to have to decide to block one of these. Cool. So I chump, and then I have 8 power. That's all I can really do this game. If they have a run amok or a burn spell, I'll die. That's okay. Beergy has been declared. My deck is like mostly blue sources, but... this is where I need mammoth growth. Lame. Where were you like so many turns ago? I could have foretold this at any point before now. But no, it's okay. Maybe they'll fuck up the block. I'm only hitting him for 1 and then I'm dying. Good game. All right, that's going to be it for today. We're going to go ahead and see Sandy. She's her birthday. And I will see everybody. So originally, I think I had no stream scheduled for tomorrow. I might be streaming tomorrow because I got called into work. So I'll let you know. You're welcome, Fina. Thank you for watching. That's the harder job. Not tonight. I might come back. Like, I would like to play more, but I have to get some chores done. So I might come back if I finish my chores too. It really depends on how long they take. But oops, I just shouted out instead of rating. All right. I will see everybody hopefully tomorrow. I'll know for sure tomorrow afternoon. But I will be streaming more than I thought this weekend because I thought I was going to Denver for fun and instead I'm working. So I will stream afterwards.